Hello and welcome. I'm Yuki. There's a feeling a lot of people have been describing to me lately, and none of us can name it properly. It isn't unhappiness, it's a sense that something in ordinary life has shifted underneath us, that things are somehow thinner than they used to be, and that if you tried to explain it to someone, you'd sound vague or ungrateful or old. And that last one is the reason most people don't say it out loud. You suspect it might just be you. You're at an age where people start saying things were better before, and you've heard how that sounds, so you keep quiet about it. I don't think it's you, and I don't think it's people getting worse either. I think the change is much smaller and much more specific than that. And I only worked out what it was because of a bowl. So instead of asking what's happened to the world, I'd like to ask you something else today. What in your house is older than you are? Take a moment with that, because for most people, the honest answer is nothing at all. Let me show you. Let's begin. I want to start with an ordinary object that turns out not to be ordinary. In a Japanese house, the rice bowl is yours. Not a rice bowl, yours specifically. The one you eat from, that nobody else eats from, that has a size and a pattern that belongs to you and not to your sister or your husband. The chopsticks work the same way. I'd like you to hold on to that bowl, because everything else comes back to it. My mother has had hers since she married, which is 53 years ago now, and it lives in the same place in the same cupboard. And when I put a plate away in the wrong spot, she notices within a day. It is not a valuable object. It is simply hers, and it has been hers for longer than I have been alive. What that does is quite hard to describe until you've lived with it. It gives an object a future, because a bowl that is yours is a bowl somebody will one day have to decide about. It gets washed differently. It gets put down more carefully. When it chips, the chip is a thing that happened rather than a reason. Compare that with the 6 identical plates most of us own, which nobody has any relationship with whatever, and which we would replace tomorrow without a second thought or a moment's feeling. I'm not saying the bowl is better. I'm saying it belongs to a category we've almost stopped having. The same idea sits on the front of every old shop in the country, and you can see it from the street. The noren. It's a split cloth curtain hung across the doorway, with the shop's name dyed into it. It goes out in the morning and comes in at night, and while it's out, the shop is open. Some of them are 50 years old and are re-dyed rather than replaced. Now, the interesting part isn't the curtain. It's that hanging it is a claim. We were here yesterday, and we intend to be here tomorrow. There is a word for a shop like that, shinise, and it just means an old established business, but it is used with a straightforwardness that I miss. Nobody thinks it's charming. It's a category of shop, the way we'd say a corner shop, and the country is full of them. Quick pause. My ebook, The Quiet Reset, is for when you want a calmer way to sort through what's changed and what still matters. It's the first link in the description. Now on doors, there's a smaller version of it on every house, and it's the thing I noticed first when I came back after years away. The family name is on a plate by the door, a hayosatsu, a small piece of wood or stone with the household surname carved or written on it, fixed beside the entrance. I want to be careful not to romanticize this, because plenty of people now find it a privacy problem and take them down, and I understand why. But look at what it assumes. It assumes that the people inside will still be the people inside for long enough to be worth carving. It is a small, slightly stubborn statement that this address has a family attached to it, rather than an occupant. And there's one more thing that gives the game away completely, and almost nobody outside Japan notices it. Good objects come with a box, and the box is kept. A plain paulownia wood box made to fit that one bowl or that one pot, with the maker's name written on the lid in ink. It isn't packaging. It is not thrown away when you get the thing home. It lives in the cupboard, and the object goes back into it. I used to think this was fussiness, and it took me until my 40s to see what it actually is. A box like that only makes sense if you assume the object is going to be put away and taken out again. Many times, for a long time, possibly by somebody who isn't you. It's a piece of physical evidence that the maker expected the thing to have a life. Nothing I have bought in the last 20 years has arrived in anything that expected that. So let me stop and say plainly what I think has actually changed. Because it is not that things are badly made. Almost nothing you own is expected to outlast you. And that expectation was set long before you bought any of it. Think about what happens when a thing is expected to last. It gets a place, it gets a name. My bowl, my father's knife, the good scissors. Somewhere in your town, there is a person whose job is to fix that particular kind of thing, and you know who they are, because eventually you will need them. The object arrives with a future and a relationship attached. And when a thing is not expected to last, none of that is built. It arrives with a receipt and a guarantee period, which is a promise about how long the seller is responsible, rather than how long the object will live. There's no place for it, because it isn't staying. There's nobody to mend it, because mending costs more than replacing, and everyone knows it. Here's the part I think we feel and can't name. What you lose isn't the object. It's everybody who came with it. A permanent thing implies a permanent person, a mender, a shop, a face you'd see once every few years for 30 years. Take the permanence out, and those people simply stop existing, one trade at a time, and the street quietly empties of them. That's the thinness. It isn't imagined, and it isn't nostalgia. There genuinely are fewer people in your life now, and it happened because of what happened to your things. You can see the whole idea most clearly in a floor, of all places. Tatami mats are refaced rather than thrown out. The mat has a thick base and a woven surface, and when the surface wears or yellows, a man comes, takes the mats away, turns them over, or puts a new face on the same base, and brings them back. It's called omotegai. It is completely routine. I find this a genuinely useful way to think about objects, quite apart from the flooring. The thing has a core, which stays, and a surface, which is consumed. And the trade exists because everyone agreed the core was worth keeping. There's no equivalent for a sofa, or a mattress, or a laptop. We don't have cores and surfaces anymore. We have units, and the whole unit goes. The same trade still exists for the sharpest thing in the kitchen, and I'd hold on to it if I were you. Knives are sharpened, not replaced. There's a sharpener in most shopping streets, or a van that comes round, where you learn to do it yourself on a wet stone. A decent Japanese kitchen knife will outlive its owner and is expected to. My grandmother's went to my aunt. I'm not going to pretend this is unique to Japan, because half the world sharpened its knives until recently. What's unusual is that the trade survived, and it survived because enough people kept treating a knife as a thing you own once. A trade is not a skill. It's a skill plus enough customers, and the customers are the part that disappeared. It goes further than objects, and this is where it starts to feel strange to people abroad. Here, a person can inherit a name. In the old crafts and the old theaters and in some old shops, the successor takes on the predecessor's professional name, the same name with a number after it. There is a formal announcement. The 18th holder of a name may be alive today, and the 17th may be the man who taught him. I understand why that sounds oppressive, and for some people it is. But turn it round. The name is the thing that continues, and the person is the one who carries it for a while, which is roughly the opposite of how most of us think about a career. You are not building something that ends when you stop. You are holding something for the next one, and you know their face. There's one more example, and it's the strangest thing on this list, but it makes the point better than anything else. There's a shrine that is rebuilt every 20 years. At Ise, the main buildings are taken down and built again from new timber on an identical plot beside the old one, to exactly the same design. This has been done roughly every 20 years for over 1,000 years. Now, at first that sounds like the opposite of permanence. Nothing there is old. But think about what's actually being preserved. Not the wood, the knowledge of how to cut it, the tools, the joints, the people who know. Every 20 years, a generation of carpenters has to learn the whole thing from the generation above, because they're about to do it. The building is the excuse. The transmission is the point, and it turns out that is the only kind of permanence that ever really works. Now I have to be honest with you, because if I stopped here, you'd have a very false picture. And Japan is close to the worst possible example on this subject. Houses here are demolished. An ordinary Japanese house is treated as a depreciating object. It loses its value over roughly 20 to 30 years, is often worth essentially nothing after that, and is then knocked down and replaced, even when it is perfectly sound. Land holds value. Buildings do not. Most people here will never live in a house older than they are. and most will never inherit one. And the rest of it is no better. The 100 yen shops are enormous and are full of things designed to be thrown away. Phones are replaced constantly. The shopping streets with the sharpener and the tatami man in them are closing at a rate nobody has managed to stop, and half of them now have shutters down at midday. I should also say the obvious thing, which is that in almost every measurable way, objects today are better. They're cheaper, they're safer, they break less often than the ones I grew up with, and I would not go back. The feeling isn't about quality, and it never was. It's about whether anything is going anywhere after you. Let me lay it out simply then. The things that make life feel thin are these. Nothing you own has a future, so nothing you own has a place. No object is anybody's in particular, so no object gets cared for as if it were. There is nobody whose job is to mend the things you have, so you have never met them. The whole unit is replaced rather than the worn part, so no skill has to survive. And a thing that arrives with a guarantee instead of a lifetime never really becomes yours at all. And the things that thicken it again are small and slightly old-fashioned. One object that is specifically yours and nobody else's, used daily, for years. One thing that gets repaired at least once rather than replaced. Knowing the name of one person who mends something. Owning at least one thing that has a plausible next owner. And treating the worn surface of a good thing as a surface rather than as the end of it. If you take one question with you, take the one from the beginning. What in your house is older than you are? If the answer is nothing, that isn't a failure of character. Nobody sold you anything with a future in it. But you can change the answer, and it doesn't take money. It takes deciding that one ordinary object is going to be kept. Which brings me back to that bowl, in the same cupboard, in the same spot, for 53 years. It's worth almost nothing. It has a chip on the rim from a morning in the 1980s that we both remember for different reasons. And I know exactly who will have it, because she has told me, more than once, with the particular firmness of a woman who has thought about it. You don't need a Japanese rice bowl. Pick something you already own and already use. A cup, a knife, a chair. And quietly decide it's staying. That's the whole thing. Everything else follows from it, including, eventually, the people. If you want more reminders to notice what is worth keeping, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.